And now, part 3 of our 3-part conversation with Suzanne Yatim, Palestinian-American activist, actor, and former Miss Arab USA, discussing Palestine 1 year into the war and keeping Palestine in mind while voting. This is the Black Information Network Daily Podcast with your host, Ramses Ja and Q Ward. You know, the thing that we come back to is we need to do something. We come back to that quite a bit in this conversation, and not just this conversation. We come back to that a lot. Mm-hmm. One thing I do know a little bit about is Black people in the United States. We come back to that quite a bit. Black people are very, very old people. The oldest.
Yep.
We have an old soul. And everyone else on this planet are our children. And we have patience for our children. I'll say this the right way. I like for Q to say it for me, but I'll say it this time. The Black women are as close to God as human beings can ever get. So all of us are children of Black women. You know, this is the first human being to give birth to a human being. Homo sapiens sapien, right? That patience has given us perhaps a different timeline. So this idea of do something goes back decades in this country, centuries, but eons in terms of the scale of humanity's existence. We've tried to pin down the what. Do something. What? I don't know. If I had a magic wand, I don't know. But this is broken. What we have now is broken, but we need to do something. We need to do something else because this is not working. This is a feeling that I don't have to empathize with because I can sympathize with it. I know that feeling. If I don't know it myself as Ramses Ja Rudy King Taylor II, I got it honestly because the people that came before me that look like me, and the people that came before them that look like me, and the people that came before them that look like me, whose last word that they ever heard in their life was the N-word, as they hung from a tree, as they were whipped to death in a pile of dirt on the dust on a plantation, as they were clipped and stripped and tarred and feathered, as they were robbed of any modicum of dignity in the last few moments of their short, difficult life, robbed of joy, robbed of aspirations, robbed of indeed their very humanity. The one thing that I know is that this feeling of resistance, this feeling of pushing back, this feeling of affirming your value is part and parcel to the human experience. It's something that everyone endowed with consciousness from our common creator, whoever you decide that is, deserves. The something that we do can change conversation to conversation, moment to moment, year to year, country to country, you name it. But acknowledging the brokenness of a system and that we need to change it is perhaps the first step of a much, much longer journey. So with this part of the conversation, with this part of the discussion, I want to continue to posit more in the way of thought-provoking questions to see if we can, maybe we don't get any closer, but maybe we can inspire the thought of our listeners. Or maybe we can just take some more home with us to chew on, prior to having to actually make our way to the ballot box. So let me start here. As I mentioned, we're at a time where Black women in particular are able to be excited. They're able to be represented in the political arena. They are able to see a person who is an imperfect human being and yet still be excited. This person doesn't check every box. Granted, the main box that is necessary for your people and really should be for all people, and I think that we had a conversation earlier about how people are acknowledging that how necessary that is. The main box is still a little on the line, a lot on the line. I'll be fair. It's a lot on the line. But again, in a binary system, when the other candidate represents so much fear, and she represents at least some optimism in some areas, it's very easy and very natural for human beings to feel excited about not having to go, down the worst path. That excitement, I feel, can come across as insulting and hurtful to my sister sitting in front of me, looking at me in my eyes right now. And that's tough, because I have little sisters and big sisters, and I have teachers, and I have women that I know and love, and they legitimately are excited. And remember, I told you your face comes into my brain. Mm-hmm. And I'm loyal, and I will be, and I won't change. And you'll know that. You'll come to my funeral, I'll come to yours. That's how I am. That's a lot. That's a heavy place to find yourself under, the enormity of that, where it's like, we do episodes where we talk about, okay, let's do the facts about Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And to us, the objective facts make her look like the better choice. And again, in those moments, you find yourself being excited about having done a good show, having done your research, having laid out the facts. Okay, cool. It's a very clear choice here, people. And then when I play it back and I'm editing the show, and I'm like, I'm here in the room by myself, and I'm like, how will we fail you so that we can know how can we keep this reality from happening while trying to hold up the bottom of this reality, right, with only these options in the middle. And I know that we had a brief conversation about a third party candidate and the viability of that. We could have gone into more detail, but I recognize and respect your position to have to do that. If I was in your position, I would have to do the same thing. Right. But I'm not in your position, but I have to be your brother in this moment. And again, we're right back at that same intersection. I apologize to keep asking the same questions, but
the thing that was frustrating about Kamala and the Democratic Party is there's no pretense about who Trump is. Like, he'll tell you, right? He doesn't say one thing and then do another. He really does the thing that he's going to say. Like, you know who he really is.
He does that with the worst of things.
Oh, I'm not saying it's a good thing.
Great things, he completely lies and says he'll do them and doesn't. But with the worst things he promises, he follows through.
Yeah. So, but he just doesn't lie about who he is. Like, it's very clear. We all know he's racist. We know that because we don't have to intuit it. We don't have to like read between the lines. I mean, he'll just tell you. So the frustrating thing about the Democratic Party is they were supposed to be the party of human rights. They were supposed to be the party of social justice, of civic liberties, and they're not. And so it feels like the biggest bait and switch. The Republicans will tell you who they are. Democrats will tell you what they want you to think to make themselves look good and for you to feel like it's gonna be okay, and then not do the thing. Barack Obama dropped more drones than any president. That's not what he stood for when he spoke to us. We did not think that that was going to happen. That's what he did. So it feels really deceitful, and it feels like we're being feels like gaslighting. It's global gaslighting to sit there and go, oh, but they're the better choice because look what they're saying. It's like, yeah, but look what they're doing. Like, I don't know how else to say it. They're doing the genocide. Yeah. And so I mean, I'm running out of words on where to go from there.
I think the unfair thing for anyone your brothers included, would be to expect for you to come up with solution perfect.
Yeah, that's not it.
Yeah.
Just give me some insight.
The political system in this country is an interesting one, because if the Democratic Party put forward today a plan for reparations, the Republican House and Senate would get rid of it. If the Democrats put forward healthcare or the border, if it's not in the best political interest of the Republicans, they would get rid of it. When something is put forward to continue to fund this genocide,
Everybody.
they seem to collectively agree on that.
It's the one thing they all agree on.
So it's
hurtful.
Even though it feels like deception, it's unfair to say the Democrats are doing this. The United States government is funding this genocide. The entire country, no matter who you back, you're complicit.
That's true.
When my mom was a United Auto Workers member, we had that conversation with her in Detroit. So
she really is from Detroit.
Was a member of the UAW, worked for Ford Motor Company for 30 years, while also being a pastor and a single mother and the greatest mother of all time. She had a really good friend at work that was a Republican. And when it was time to vote, they would vote for opposite candidates. And then the day after, he'd pick me up and take me to lunch. Because, as you said, they didn't used to worship political candidates.
Right.
And they didn't have an ideology completely tied to that person and how they think and live. And the difference in this election that's most different than any other, and this isn't even about the choices that we make on election day, it's just something for our listeners to posit. Even when George Bush won, he did not try to put forth legislation to say, I couldn't be unhappy about it, and that I couldn't organize and protest and try to fix this broken system. There is a party now that does want to do that. They do want to make it where we no longer have a voice, where we can't be upset, where we can't be angry, where we cannot try to do something. And we don't know collectively, even now as we sit here, three, I consider really intelligent people, what the ultimate solution is. But very soon there's a party that would have it where it does not matter. The man has said out loud, you won't even need to vote anymore. We're going to fix it. That is the scariest option, because from what I've been told, we could all be being lied to. So I'll start there. But from what's being said, Vice President Kamala Harris could become the president. I could be angry about it. I could protest it. I could organize to make sure the next time that there was an election that we had a more perfect candidate on the ballot. If the other person wins, he's promising that that's something that won't be possible. So it's not about my sister's decision, because in her shoes, every word she said is correct, is righteous, and is right. And she's getting no pushback from her brother. I hate speaking after her because I feel like I'm going against her. I'm not. I need her and everybody listening to understand that. Her prosperity, her posterity, her happiness, her joy, her peace, not just her self-determination, but for what she wants for everyone that she loves and what she wants for me, because that matters. The reason why her mic didn't come on and she didn't tell us, you do exactly what I say or you're wrong, is because she also cares about me and my children, just like I care about her and hers. So we're having this conversation so you guys can hear us trying to figure it out loud. But one of the most wonderful people, she's my favorite stranger that I've ever encountered. I mean that. I don't say that to make her smile. I mean that because pure humanity from someone who didn't know me. She trusted me to cry to me. She trusted this black man, right? Because there's a portion of this country that wouldn't, just because of that, to put his arms around her and be there for her at hello. So there's no decision that she's going to make that looks like the best outcome from her that I'm going to present a challenge to. I think we are both just saying out loud the things that are complicated and that hurt and that are difficult, because she didn't say anything wrong. Our system as it stands is broken. It should not be this or that when both are not good. We just, however, have not yet put ourselves in a position of power to actually change that. We don't have the funding. We don't have the money. Right now, we don't have the time. But I'm hoping that everybody is kind of discouraged at the idea that we don't have everything that we need or everything that we want, and we continue to collectively support a system that doesn't holistically benefit all of us.
I got a bar if you don't.
Go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
This is about you.
Go ahead.
All right. Spitballing. You know, you mentioned something that the Republicans tell you who they are, and you know who they are. And the Democrats pull a bait and switch. Mm. They tell you the things that they need to say to get elected, and then they flip the script on you, right? I want to reconcile that. I want to kind of mash that into a political theory that I believe might have some basis in human psychology. It's that if you vote left, down ballot, slowly it pulls the whole political system to the left a little bit more. And if you can, same thing happens if you vote right, because the next go round, people will say, well, this worked last time. This is polling better with these people. This is what these voters want. And so we need candidates that are less far right, maybe more center right, because we lost some of our center right folks to the left last time. So let's the extreme element, let's cut that off because that's not working. Let's only focus on, and it just moves the whole arena left a little bit. And in this country, because of our electoral college, we've been able to dance back and forth because the electoral college adds this additional layer of influencing the outcomes of the election without necessarily accounting for the will of the people, like in terms of the popular vote. And then over time, on the scale of a country, not the scale of a human being, because as a human, I want to vote, and then I want that vote to count, and I want to see the change in a matter of years, maybe a decade, maybe two, right? Because that's a human scale. But in the scale of a country, we live in a country where we used to be slaves, and we don't live in that country right now. And they would have worked Q a lot harder than me. He could run fast. So progress does take a long time. And I know that we have a quote that we share from James Baldwin where he asks, basically, how long do you want your progress to take? Because he himself is frustrated because he gets these same talking points. He got it as pushback, right? From white liberals saying, "Hey, James, I know you want all this stuff. It takes time." Down. Yeah, and he's like, "Well, how long? It took my grandma's time. It took my mom's time. It took my time. How much time is it supposed to take for your version of what my progress should look like?" So I want to put that in here as well, but maybe just get your thoughts on how, and this includes a vote for a Jill Stein. It may not be as impactful given, the Ralph Nader story I shared, but it's still a vote on the left, right? Do you feel maybe some optimism given that political theory that a vote on the left moves the whole thing left, or outcomes that are left-based?
It's so confusing for me when the left is the one, and I get what you're saying, Q, but when they're the ones that are saying, no, we're going to keep sending money, it's okay. And the president is the one that said it. It wasn't like he went to Congress and Congress passed it. He went right past Congress for an emergency that he did, and he sent the money very quickly. So it's really hard for me to go, but the left will eventually figure it out, when right now they're doing literally what we've decided is the worst thing in the world. So that's really, really confusing for me as somebody who has always kind of been back and forth between right and left. Because sometimes I'm like, I like being fiscally conservative. Like that feels okay. but I love social progressive view like that, so I've always just sort of been like trying to figure it out too. I don't have all those answers. The fact that you and I have to sit here and go, yeah, but what happens to your children in this country if this guy wins? And I have to go, okay, but what's happening to my brothers and sisters on our dime right now? And the fact that you and I have to sit here and try to come up with the answers to something that we did not create is so maddening, and it's not fair, because it's us and our children, our kids that are suffering. I mean, I also have little brown babies, they're part Palestinian, part Pakistani. That's
in the United States.
In the United States, yeah. Interestingly, though, they're the descendants on their paternal grandmother's side is from Thomas Jefferson.
Wow.
And it's so cool that Thomas Jefferson's got like little Palestinian descendants, which is kind of a cool thing about this country. But this has now become our responsibility to fix.
Yeah,
people are coming to me going, okay, how do we stop the genocide? I don't know. I didn't do it. Yeah. Like, you tell me, really, you tell me.
You sound like us. People come to us. How do we fix the racism? We didn't create it. We have no idea. And the advantage that those that oppose us have is they leave us to have conversations like this.
With other people who side with.
We have to decide what hurts us least. And they get to wholeheartedly support everything that hurts us. It's an incredibly impossible position to be in. But the wonderful thing is we love each other. We love each other enough to have it out loud for everyone else to hear, that we're all here trying to figure it out, and that we care about each other.
And I know your heart, and I know you're not like, yeah, but the genocide's okay because I need to protect my kids. Like I get what you're saying. It just makes it even more complicated.
The computer screen in front of me says no one is free until we are all free. And everyone who feels oppressed and marginalized and under the thumb of this system should repeat that to yourself as you're trying to figure out what to do. Your oppression does not mean more than the oppression of another group.
Nelson Mandela said, who got his freedom, said, our freedom is not complete without the freedom of the Palestinians. And that man deserves all the freedom. And yet he still said, no, it's not enough. James Baldwin said, every child is our child. So when one child is suffering, that's my baby. And we're starting to get a little higher, where we're starting to realize, okay, it's not just kids in Gaza. Like, those are actually our children that are dying, that are being killed. But until we get to that point where we really see the intersection as not just an intersection, it's a fabric of this incredibly strange tapestry that's woven where we really are connected, then it's always going to be like, okay, but my needs come first. And that's going to be really, it's a hard challenge, especially when the only people that want to do the changing are the people that are suffering underneath it. You know what I mean? That's why we need our allies. That's why we need white allies. They're my favorite, because they go, this has nothing to do with me. And I put that in quotes, and yet I'm still going to do something because this is not right. That's what we need. It's tiring, you guys.
Yeah.
Well, any final thoughts, and then we'll give Suzanne the last word.
It always gives me the last word, and I never know what to say. I write for a living, and I never know how to wrap up my books. I never know how to end. It's so hard.
I'll help out.
I think I expressed my final thoughts already. It was important to talk to you, the listener, and to my brother and to my sister here. We didn't make the choice today. We really just spoke about why the choice is so hard to make, and kind of gave the parameters of the outcomes of each choice,
I will say this. No matter who you vote for, it is important to understand that when you support and fight for Palestine, you are fighting for all of our rights. This really is more than a representation of all of our rights suffering under this colonial oppression that we think died, that is still very much alive. So you keep fighting for Palestine, because when you do, you really are fighting for you and your kids' futures. If we dismantle the apartheid and the occupation in Palestine, we all win, because that is going to forever change the landscape of the entire planet. So again, no matter who you vote for, you still keep fighting for us, because it's in the betterment of all of humanity.
I like that. So we'll leave that there. Hopefully we don't have to have a 2-year anniversary conversation. We can instead have a 2-year celebratory conversation. I would like nothing more than that. You are a good friend. You are my sister. You are an excellent human being. I will do my best to do right by you as best as I can figure, moment to moment, as I have. I will continue to rely on you to help me to learn what that is moment to moment, as your reality changes. I appreciate you being patient with me and with all of us. As I said, and as you reminded me, that there's a special history between our two peoples, Black people and Palestinian people, and hopefully this conversation and our relationship continues to exist in the same spirit of this long-standing fellowship between our two tribes. And of course, thank you for your time. Once again, our guest has been Suzanne Yatim, a human rights major, former Miss Arab USA, an actress and an activist turned writer. Please give her a follow on her social medias at The Actorvist. Her content is thought-provoking and inspiring. It is it does indeed represent the duality of the Palestinian experience, not just one side but the other side. So you're gonna get everything that you need, and hopefully get some perspective that you haven't had before. I guess I'll leave it right there. Thanks for listening. I've been your host, Ramses Ja.
And I am your host, Q Ward.
If you have any thoughts, hit us on the Red Microphone Talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app or on our social media. And until next time, y'all.
Peace.
This has been a production of the Black Information Network. Today's show is produced by Chris Thompson. Have some thoughts you'd like to share? Use the Red Microphone Talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. While you're there, be sure to hit subscribe and download all of our episodes. I am your host, Ramses Ja, on all social media. Join us tomorrow as we share our news with our voice, from our perspective, right here on the Black Information Network Daily Podcast.